I think I had a lot of shame around the fact that I wasn't able to regulate my own nervous system at the time because I'm sitting here teaching people to do this. And, I wasn't practicing what I was preaching. And it was very shocking to me, I think, to become a parent and realize that I wasn't able to be in a calm body for a long time. I mean, coming to transformation coaching and being like, help me. I can't regulate. I didn't even know that that's what I needed at the time,
Mm.
honestly. That's how
Mhm.
disconnected I was from my own
Mhm.
body. But yeah, it certainly was a part of my process was reconciling the fact that like I'm a human and I get to have experiences just like everybody else. And sometimes those experiences are going to overwhelm the skills and abilities that I thought I had.
You're listening to the Mindful Mama podcast, episode number 312. Today, we're talking about becoming a mindful parenting teacher with Darcey Fairchild. Welcome to the Mindful Mama podcast, now with over 1 million downloads. Here, it's about becoming a less irritable, more joyful parent. At Mindful Mama, we know that you cannot give what you do not have. And when you've calm and peace within, then you can give it to your children. I'm your host, Hunter Clark Field's Mindful Mama mentor. I help smart, thoughtful parents stay calm so they can have strong, connected relationships with their children. I've been practicing mindfulness for over 20 years. I'm the creator of Mindful Parenting, and I'm the author of Raising Good Humans, a mindful guide to breaking the cycle of reactive parenting and raising kind, confident kids. Hey, welcome back to the Mindful Mama podcast. I'm glad you're here. I'm so glad to connect today. I'm super excited to introduce you to this person because I have known this person for a long time now, and I think she is really, really darn cool. So I'm super excited for you to meet her. Darcey is a licensed clinical social worker. She began her specialization in perinatal mental health after experiencing the whole distress of postpartum anxiety. And, she worked on her own healing through yoga and trail running, which ultimately led to mindfulness and embracing health holistically. And Darcey is going to share her story, and she lives in rural Montana with her partner and her small little son. And we're going to talk about how she came towards mindful parenting and raising kids with a connection to nature and all of these wonderful things. I'm so excited to talk to her. There's going to be so many great takeaways. I know that you're going to totally relate to her story about you may be in a helping and healing profession and yet still be struggling in your own life. And this happens to a lot of us, and a lot of us feel a lot of judgment for ourselves for it. And, in our whole individualistic culture, we tend to not be super ready to give ourselves the help we need. And this is a great story of that and coming out the other side stronger, more resilient, and being able to help more people, which is so, so cool. And I'm so excited because the enrollment for the 2022 winter spring session of the Mindful Parenting Teacher Training Program is open. Woo! Yay! And you can apply at mindfulparentingcourse.com/teach. We have the schedule, we have the tuition, we have the modules, all the information up there. This may be for you if you are in a helping and healing profession like Darcey is. This is a great complement to work as a licensed clinical social worker. If you are a teacher and work in a school, this may be a great thing to offer to your local people, to offer them the mindful parenting course in person, to be a mindful parenting teacher. And some people do the mindful parenting teacher training just to totally embody the teachings because you never understand something more than you do when you teach it. If you are interested, I'm opening up one group at first that will be starting in February, but we're taking enrollment now so that you can, if you are not currently a member, you can go through the modules on your own first. And if you are a member, make sure you ask us about our member discount on tuition. And this will empower you to teach mindful parenting in person, just like Darcey did. So check it out. Okay, mindfulparentingcourse.com/teach. And now, dear listener, on to this episode. So I'm so excited to talk to you because Darcey, you're number one. Number one. You're the number one first certified mindful parenting teacher besides me.
Yeah,
So high
that's pretty
fives.
cool.
This is amazing. Yay. I'm so excited. So I wanted to bring you on to talk to you about what brought you into the whole journey and what you're going to do with it. But I really want to, I'm curious about, like, I'd like to kind of walk it back because you have a life of like service and doing things, right? Like you're a licensed clinical social worker. And you know, I don't know. I guess let's keep it to parenting first. Can we go back to like your own story and like how were you parented? Were you did you come to the mindful parenting like reacting against or like trying to live up to?
um, well, I'm one of five children. I'm number four.
Oh,
And so I feel like my mom probably ran the gamut of parenting styles. And by the time she got to me at number four, was very loving and um, tired and exhausted, and also was balancing a very professional career. And so, I think she did a lot of um, bringing what she could, but sometimes uh, spoons were gone by the end of the day. And so, we didn't have. I don't feel like I had a ton of boundaries as a kid. Certainly, we had like rules and some structure, but really, like, I mean, I don't know if she would agree with this, but I certainly felt like at times we were um, kind of in charge of making our own decisions a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in an era of like, you know, moms joining the workforce for the first time and really like probably struggling with the fact that they were torn between parenting and also wanting to have their own careers. And so, um, we would stay home alone a lot after school. And I had older siblings, so they were caring for us. And um, a lot of, I guess maybe some free range parenting was going on
Yeah. My
before it was
parents
a
like to
thing.
call this benign neglect. It sounds
Oh,
like.
yes. Yeah, I heard that term recently, and I really relate to it. And I don't attach negative feeling to it, but certainly, like, there was definitely benign neglect going on.
That sounds a lot like me actually. I was really like roaming around town a lot. Like my town was very, it had a lot of sidewalks. It was kind of small town. So but like I from a very young age, it was so funny because recently my daughters are like it's like they wanted to get candy or one for something. And I was like, why don't you go down to this convenience store? It's like a mile from our house. Like there's sidewalks. Just go there and get some. And they're like, oh my God. I couldn't go into a store by myself. And I'm like, you're 14 and 11. Like I went into stores by myself when I was 6 and 7.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was definitely, like, walking myself home from school from kindergarten on.
yeah. First
Like,
grade
not just
engineering.
across the street, like, probably a mile or 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I do think my parents separated when I was really little, so I think I was maybe, like, 3. And we lived primarily with my mom and often a stepfather figure. And, so y- I like to look at my mom as a single parent because I don't think that
Yeah.
my stepfathers had a lot of influence in our life. But yeah, as I got older, I remember a lot of like yelling um, and I started to notice that in myself pretty early on. So that
Mm-hmm.
kind of actually brought me to mindful parenting.
Yeah, the yelling, it's like it was probably I mean, I don't know if you're like me, like for me, when I discovered the yelling in myself, that like the temper in myself, it was like, "Oh my God, this is what I did not want to bring into my own parenting," because I remembered it from being a kid and just being petrified. I don't know if it
Absolutely.
was similar for you.
Yeah, and I don't remember ever having like the feeling of fear or it was certainly like in my family we were very much like taught to kind of stifle our emotions.
Mm,
I remember a lot of like, okay, stop crying, stop crying.
mm,
Um, and, growing up in Montana, there is this overall cultural view of, uh, or cultural perspective that is very much like pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Like you don't ask for help, you just get things figured out. Um, and you also don't talk about what's going on in your family, not even to your family. So
mm,
these were all like pieces and components of my childhood that
mm.
certainly I recognize now as a parent that I don't want to perpetuate.
Yeah, yeah. So, I'm curious, like, it sounds like your upbringing, in some ways, it sounds like a little like what my mom was the youngest of 3 sisters, but she was like a surprise oops baby that her mom had when she was 42,
Mhm.
and, her oldest sister was, like, 14 years older than her, so then there was all of a sudden this baby in the house, like, after all these years, and so she was raised like, she tells me, she's like, "Oh, I just, like, ate dinner by myself in front of the TV all the time," and, like, she had, like, they were just so chilled out by then and just didn't care that much, I guess,
Yeah.
like, they were just a lot more relaxed, and it's so funny because it always seems like kind of like being a lot more relaxed is generally kind of a good thing, in some of those ways. Okay, so then you you went into service. I wanna kinda, like, since we're on the timeline, is it okay if I tell me about why you went into social work and
Mm.
what drew you to that?
If I'm really truly honest, I don't think it was a conscious decision, much of a conscious decision. Honestly, there were like a lot of events in my life. I was living in North Carolina for a time, being in a military town and working as a assistant preschool teacher. And during that time, it was just following 9/11. I was seeing a lot of families being impacted by the separations that the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan were causing. And so I started to like kind of tune into like the fact that there were going to be some serious implications on families. Back then, I was like in my 20s. I didn't have a family at all, but um, I think that kind of planted the seed of like service. I always grew up saying I wanted to be a pediatrician. um, I think I just had this like innate caregiving thing going on from a pretty young age, and um, so yeah, it wasn't a linear path at all. I did the nannying gigs for a while. I did preschool teaching for a while. I was a ski bum for a while. I was
Nice.
a ski instructor. Yeah, that was a fun time. And I also was a wildland firefighter. I actually started out
Oh, wow.
in forestry school here in Montana at the University of Montana, wanting to be a silviculturist and work in the woods. And
Silviculturist.
mhm.
This is great because my daughter has been wondering what the word is for, like, somebody who, like, goes and works in the woods, and I didn't know there was a word, a sylvan, yeah, silviculturalist. I'm writing this down for Maggie.
Yeah, and I can we offline we can talk more about what that actually means. But yeah, so it was a long winding path. I actually ended up losing a family member to suicide, a cousin, when I was in undergraduate. Once I had come back from preschool teaching, and I was working as a ski instructor and also going to school. And I think that was like a very big shifting point. I was like, okay, so like I thought I wanted to go into education more, but I think maybe there might be some room for me over here, maybe in family counseling or therapy. I had no idea, honestly, because as I said, we were raised in a family where we didn't talk about our problems. So that certainly meant nobody was doing therapy.
Oh,
I didn't
yeah.
even really know what it was, quite frankly. And so I started taking more and more classes and, um, in human development and starting to kind of explore like psychology and things like that. And I really enjoyed it. And so,
Can I interject here?
oh,
Because
yeah, of
when I
course.
did my first, like, intro to psychology class and I learned about attachment theory, I was like, "Oh my gosh." Like,
Oh,
did
yeah.
you, like, self-diagnose, like, everything you had in all of your undergraduate, psychology classes?
Yeah. I mean, I probably did start like being like, oh boy, like things weren't as good as I thought they were. Like, because I really truly like have this perspective. And I did really until, even a few years ago that like things were fine. Like I had a great childhood. It was pretty happy. Like sure there were some things that weren't great, but overall, like I would have classified it as a very normal like Montana family upbringing. And it's when you start to like pick things apart, you're like, well, we might have done that differently. So yeah, I'm totally going off track here, but
That's what we do here.
that's good to know. Yeah, I definitely the seeds were planted and I started watering them, and and then the death of my cousin certainly like sent me on a path. I applied for my undergraduate degree was in health and human development, and I had no idea what I was going to do with that other than maybe like no, I really had no idea. And so I applied to graduate school and in a marriage and family therapy program. And I was waitlisted and devastated. And I was like, oh my God, like I can't be a ski instructor forever. Like it's super fun. And like I was actually making great money because I worked at this private ski area. But I was like, the sense of purpose and meaning part was very much missing in my life for many years. And so I kept nannying, and I worked as a personal assistant for this like super wealthy family. And at that, like working for them, I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot do this anymore. Like there is something bigger that I'm supposed to be doing than serving people with a lot of resources. And
your purpose was calling.
yeah, it really was. And so I applied to a social work program. I had talked to the faculty of the program where I was waitlisted, and they really wanted to know like why I wanted to be in the program, and to see if I was a good fit more. And as we talked, they were like, you sound like somebody who might be a good fit for a social work program. And I was like, okay, cool. I don't even know why, but that sounds great. And then as I started to look at programs and to realize like social work was a very great option for someone like me at the time who had no real clear direction, but like a definite desire to help. Because it wasn't gonna just like confine me to being a therapist. Like at the time, I did not want to be a therapist. I was like, sure, I might like work at an agency or in policy or something like that.
And like,
So I,
for
oh yeah,
people
go
who
ahead.
don't know, like social work, because it took me a long time to figure it out. Social workers can do therapy but do all kinds of other things, right? Like just like maybe you can give us like the 30-second lowdown into what is a social worker.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So social workers are unique in that they can work in many different arenas. So, one of the things that the program I chose had that I loved was a focus on like kind of like macro level social justice activism. And so I thought maybe like going into policy work might be interesting, or, even politics at some point. So you could go into politics, you could work in an nonprofit organization, you could run a nonprofit, and it didn't just have to be in like working with children. It could be working with anybody on the spectrum. And so I think, that's one thing about social work that was really appealing to me, was that it wasn't going to pigeonhole me. And so I applied to the University of Montana School of Social Work and got in, and it was a 2-year program. Like I said, it wasn't a clinical program, a broad program that encompassed a lot of areas, including social justice and activism, and very little focus on the micro parts of social work, which I think are more like individual therapy.
But is that what you do now, right? It's like
Yep, that's what I do
individual.
now.
You kind of circled back to it.
Yeah, and so when I graduated, there weren't a lot of opportunities still, and so I found myself working as a family therapist for like a nonprofit in town, and that's kind of where my therapist career began, and I enjoyed it. I worked for a grief organization here in town that also partnered with TAPS, which is the national nonprofit serving military families who've experienced death or loss. And so I got to do some like program management. I was planning camps and retreats around the country. That was really
Fun.
exciting and fun. But I was also doing therapy at the same time while I was working on my license, and I really liked that. And so long and winding path. I worked for the VA in their program supporting veterans experiencing homelessness. And then I worked as an intake coordinator at an emergency room and doing like crisis assessments. And all the while, I think my goal was like, I'm going to move towards individual therapy. And so when I got pregnant with my first kiddo, my only kiddo, I started a private practice and kind of like inched my way out of my like high paying VA job. At the time it felt very high paying, um and I was doing, 4 days, 4 10s at the VA, and on my 5th day I was seeing clients in private practice, and that kind of happened really quickly, and I was able to leave the VA and have my private practice.
Stay tuned for more Mindful Mama podcast right after this break. We are supported by Chime. Chime is an award-winning app and debit card that has saved its members more than 10 billion with a B in overdraft fees with SpotMe fee-free overdraft. Chime Bank is this amazing app. It has over 350,000 plus 5-star app reviews. It is super intuitive to use. Turning everything on and off is instant. The SpotMe option has helped people when they need groceries. It's trustworthy and secure. You can get a customer service rep right away. When your online checking account balance is running low, the last thing you need is a $33 overdraft fee. Super annoying. And they've gotten way out of hand. In 2019, traditional banks took $11 billion in overdraft fees. And so Chime does this completely differently with the whole SpotMe thing. Very, very cool. And eligible members can overdraft up to $200 on debit card purchases and cash withdrawals with absolutely no fees, which is really, really cool. So now you deserve to have financial peace of mind. Join the millions of Americans who are already loving Chime. Sign up just takes 2 minutes and it doesn't affect your credit score. So you can get started today at chime.com/hunter. That's Chime, CHIME, chime.com/hunter. Banking services provided by and debit card issued by the Bank, Corp Bank, or Stride Bank, N.A. members FDIC. SpotMe eligibility requirements apply. Overdraft only applies to debit card purchases and cash withdrawals. Limits start at $20 and may be increased to $200 by Chime. Chime member overdraft fee savings based on eligible members' use of SpotMe versus the $33 average overdraft fee. Overdraft fee data based on bank rate, checking account survey, and CRL June 2020 overdraft fees report. Check them out. It's chime.com/hunter. And we wind up to present day. So now I'm curious about this, Darcey, because sometimes people come to like mindful parenting and people are like, they maybe have like a degree in child development, or they're a preschool teacher or a therapist and things like that. And what I've discovered is that a lot of people come to the course and they're like, I should know all of these things. And they're so frustrated that it's so hard to like implement that in their own family. And so
Mhm.
I'm wondering if that was kind of a similar dynamic for you, because I know I've heard that from a number of members before.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question, and absolutely. I think I had a lot of shame around the fact that I wasn't able to regulate my own nervous system at the time, because I'm sitting here teaching people to do this, and I wasn't practicing what I was preaching, and it was very shocking to me, I think, to become a parent and realize that I wasn't able to be in a calm body
Mm,
for a long time.
mhm,
And so, yeah, I think that was certainly a part of, I mean, coming to transformation coaching and being like, help me. I, I, uh, I can't, I can't regulate. I didn't even know that that's what I needed at the time.
mm,
Honestly, that's how
mhm,
disconnected I was from my own
mhm,
body. But yeah, it certainly was a part of my, process was reconciling the fact that like I'm a human and I get to have experiences just like everybody else. And sometimes those experiences are going to overwhelm the skills and abilities that I thought I had.
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny how we all have this like it's so universal that we all have this like individualism complex that like we're like, but I'm the one that's special and won't need to X, Y, or Z because I can just choose to be how I want to be, right? Like, but we all, I mean, and I've gone through that too myself, but it's like it's so fascinating that we all have this idea and that like, oh, what's wrong with me? This special thing that's wrong with me because I'm having trouble regulating and I should be the one that should just be able to do the thing that I want to do.
Mm.
It's amazing that we all
Yeah.
feel that way.
Yeah, it was so humbling to recognize like my humanness and to make peace with it. And I think, that's one of the things I loved about working with you was you were very open about, the fact that you had been in this a similar place of struggle yourself. And I think that made it feel more accessible to me because I was like, oh, like Hunter's like a human too. Cool. Like I tend to, part of me loves to like have this hero worship thing and think like everybody doing these amazing things doesn't have issues. And that really helped me recognize like we're all in this together and like step off your high horse a little bit, Darcey. Like just because you're a therapist doesn't mean you're not a human.
Yay, yay. And it's just like clear seeing, it's just like
Mhm.
acceptance. It's not like it's anything, it's not like we're humbling ourselves, but like it's just like, oh yeah, like this is honest truth, clear seeing. This is how human beings work and I'm a human being too. Cool. So what did you get from mindful parenting and the work we did in the coaching and what made you decide to want to do the teaching?
Yeah. Well, goodness, what didn't I get is a better question. I mean, the process has helped our family restore peace on such a huge like I mean maybe find peace. I don't think we even had it. From the time I became a parent, things were very intense. We had ICU involvement. We had a life flight like day 7. Like
What?
it was on
Wait, you
from
can't just drop that and then not tell the story, Darcy.
um so yeah, when we had Cooper, I mean, I'll try not to get too long-winded here, but essentially, like I had hoped for this like natural birth at the birth center, like no medication. The universe at that time was like laughing at me, like, "Oh, okay, we see what you're doing here." And they gave me everything that was not that.
Oh
But
no.
so yeah, I labored for like 32 hours at the birth center and with my midwife and my doula, and it was, intense and hard and beautiful and messy and all the things. And it ended with me being transferred to the hospital, which I had had like literal visions of that happening before.
Mm.
And so, yep, I was working at the hospital at the time, so I had this experience where after 32 hours of labor and like having been in the bathtub and like it was a hot mess in the middle of my journey, got wheeled through my own emergency department that I worked in,
Oh
and I saw like
god.
all of my
Oh
coworkers, and I'm
god.
like, "Hello,
Oh no.
everybody." And so, yeah, I ended up having a cesarean, which of
Mm.
course was never even close to part of the plan. My mom had 5 children, and I just like assumed I would easily birth a child myself, or you know, clearly
Yeah.
I have some work to do around this, but yeah, I just assumed that it would be an easy process,
Mhm.
and my body would do what it was supposed to do, and lots of reasons it didn't, and I ended up having a cesarean. It was actually, a beautiful process as well. And um, we we then got to go home a few days later. Everything seemed normal, and we went to the pediatrician appointment right after discharge from the hospital, and uh, they found that Cooper had a heart murmur, And
Oh.
at the time, I was at the doctor's office. She was like, I'm going to see if I can get you in to see the heart specialist. And like, came back and she's like, I got you in this afternoon. I was like, wow, that's great customer service,
Oh my
and
God.
then like in retrospect, I'm like, oh, that's because things are really not in
Yeah,
good
yeah, yeah,
place.
yeah.
Like when you get in to see the heart specialist, the only heart specialist in the community, like the same day, that's actually not a good sign.
Oh.
So we went over the same afternoon and did a bunch of testing, and they found out he had some multiple congenital heart defects.
Oh,
And so they sent us home that day, and he was like, I want to see you on Friday. And we came back on a Friday. And um, during that process, the doctor felt very uncomfortable with the way that Cooper's aortic arch was presenting, I guess. And he actually decided that we needed to life flight to Seattle like that day.
wow.
So I think Cooper must have been like 7 or 8 days old.
So you're
And
getting in a helicopter with your 7-day-old baby.
yeah,
Was your
so
husband able to come?
no, he wasn't. So yeah, we actually flew on they have a jet a regional jet that flies. So yeah, we got in our second ambulance ride of the week since I had already transferred to the
Oh
hospital
my
one
God.
and transferred to the airport that afternoon. After I had called my dad and was like sobbing, like, if you want to meet your grandson, you better get here. So like he lives about 2 hours away from here and got there in just over an hour. Him and
Oh my
my
God.
stepmom, and my mom was already there because she'd been here for the birth. And so yeah, that was pretty crazy. My dad is like holding my child who's now like hooked up to all of these wires and
Oh,
anyway,
wow.
so no, my husband wasn't able to go with me on that flight. We got on the flight and I flew to Seattle with Cooper and the medical team, who was incredible, absolutely incredible. We got off, got in a ambulance, and were rushed to Seattle Children's Hospital. And Joe was able to fly out. He had a friend who like worked for the airlines and was able to get him on a flight for free. Thank you, Lenny. And he came out that night and got there about 10 o'clock, I think,
Wow.
same night. So yeah, we spent the weekend in the ICU in Seattle. And the long story short is he didn't have to have any interventions. It was all precautionary at
Oh,
the time.
wow.
He gets ongoing screenings now, but, so it was a very jarring, dysregulating experience pretty much from, the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, that's, like, about as dysregulating as you can get
Yeah.
for anything. I mean, just having a baby, even if it's great, is, like, incredibly
Oh, yeah.
dysregulating, but for that kind of experience, I mean, there must have been after effects for you when Cooper was just, like, in that first year, I imagine.
Yeah. I think, it, it was an important experience that we had because I think, it gave me the opportunity to understand trauma on a
Mm.
whole new level, quite frankly. So yeah, that was kind of I recognized pretty early on that I was going to need to do some work. And I started with the physical first, actually, and started um, jogging as soon as I could. He was born in March, and I think my first run was on Mother's Day. I don't think it was on Mother's Day. Um, and I ran slash walked.
It probably
Yeah.
felt so good just to release. I mean, I'm a runner myself, like, that whole, like, getting your getting your yayas out is so, so important, that physical release, like, it's amazing. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Wow,
Yeah.
wow. So you guys had an incredible, challenging start, and you had got these, I mean, I guess now you can see, like, oh, there are these lessons and there are these challenges that were, in some way, have been really helpful for your purpose, right? That you were kind of meant in some ways, who knows, but
Totally.
to to have those so that you could have incredible empathy and understanding for other people's traumas, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, if you look at the progression of my career, that is certainly when I started like focusing on perinatal mental health. It was because of my own experience. And, I think that's common. We all get into work because of something. And certainly I had bound, if you look at my resume, it's like all over the place, like just trying to find my area. And I think, this experience that I had certainly like landed you in
Yeah.
my purpose and meaning for now. Yeah.
Yay. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. I mean, that's an incredible story. And that's gotta have been incredibly hard. And so I got to meet you when Cooper was three and a half, 4, I think, right? Like right around that time.
Yeah.
That's like the intense time. The 3.5 is like that's the time when everyone's like, "Oh my God, I need help," right? Like it
Yeah.
truly is. It's incredibly hard. Stay tuned for more Mindful Mama podcast right after this break. We are supported by Green Chef, which I love because I've been loving myself some pecan crusted chicken. So yummy with creamy mashed butternut squash and sauteed green beans. It is exactly what I am wanting to eat in this fall season. And Green Chef is just spot on. And not only is it so easy to make, but it's also super yummy, definitely restaurant quality. I love Green Chef because Green Chef is the first USDA certified organic meal kit. So you can enjoy hand picked organic veggies and premium proteins without having to worry about where they came from. It's also the most sustainable meal kit. Green Chef offsets 100% of their plastic use and 100% of their carbon footprint and emissions so you can enjoy your greens while being green. I love that Green Chef meals are pre-portioned. The recipes are super easy to follow. They're delivered right to you. You don't have to figure out what to make for dinner because you've already chosen it earlier in the week and then it arrives and it tastes amazing. Eating well has never been simpler. You don't have to worry about planning to shop for dinner again if you're like bored with your meals and you want some variety. It's such a great choice. And also, Green Chef is America's #1 meal kit for eating well, meaning they're the best meal kit, whether you're like keto or paleo or vegan or vegetarian, gluten-free, pescatarian, which we don't eat a lot of beef in our family. So, or you just want to eat more balanced meals with a lot of veggies, you can get in all these wonderful organic veggies and premium proteins. And it's so easy. I love them. Go to greenchef.com/hunter125 and use the code hunter125 to get $125. Yeah, that's $125 off, including free shipping. So that's greenchef.com/hunter125 and you're going to get $125 off. That's an amazing deal and free shipping. You won't regret it. It is so yummy. Enjoy.
Yeah, he was. And I think at the time I was really struggling with like a work-life balance,
Mhm.
and understanding like how the heck I was supposed to like get work done and also like care for him on the days that he didn't have care outside of the home. And you really helped me work through some of those issues, and through the transformation coaching process, which was really helpful.
Yay. And now you're the first certified mindful parenting teacher, Missoula, Montana. People, you've got an amazing in-person teacher of mindful parenting. You can get a group together and have Darcey teach you a class. But tell me about why you wanted to do the teacher training, because I think it's so cool that you did it.
I really wanted to do the teacher training because my learning style is such that I have to definitely like go all in. I usually learn the best by teaching or doing
Mhm.
something. And so, after the transformation coaching process, so many things had already improved within our family. And I was just noticing like more peace within myself. So from a selfish perspective, from a, micro perspective, it was a little bit like of a selfish journey to become a teacher. But then as I sat with it more, I recognized like, though Missoula is like a pretty progressive city and we have a lot of amazing resources, one thing that a lot of the mindful parenting programs that I was seeing was lacking was the part about effective communication and
Mhm.
problem solving, and not just, it wasn't just like parents being mindful. It was like all of these other things, and I thought that that would be a huge addition to our community. Um and also I just I had to put myself out of my own comfort zone, quite frankly, because again, I felt that if I did that, um I would probably be a better human.
I'm raising good humans even when they're adults. It's so exciting. Um,
You really. Yeah.
yeah, I agree. Like I've seen like there's like a lot of like mindfulness for parents. They call it maybe people call it mindful parenting, but it's like mindfulness for parents, which
Mhm.
is great. That's wonderful, but it's not like those communication aspects are so huge because like we can calm down and then we can say something really unskillful and still struggle enormously. For you, what were the communication pieces? Because we talk about like reflective listening and iMessages and how to solve problems.
Mm.
And I remember for you, it was like kind of surprising that some of those communication pieces were challenging because you were in that therapist position, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so again, it was initially I felt shame. I felt like, "Oh my goodness, like I should be doing better in the world if this is what I'm teaching other people to do." That's shifted enormously throughout this process, but um for me, I noticed like my default was using like threats
Mm.
and yelling. Anytime I was dysregulated, boy, you were going to hear threats come from my mouth. And that was cringeworthy for me. I absolutely like did not want to destroy the relationship I have with my
Mhm.
child. We've chosen to only have one child. And I was like, well, I should probably like, not be a terrible parent. Yeah.
I totally understand you. Like the threats are like kind of the default. That's like the native language. I think of it now as like that. This is like the native language from not only my own family, but just culturally. Like that's just kind of what we do culturally. And yeah, now sometimes I'm like, I really want to threaten right now. That's like I say something like that. It's so funny. But yeah, because that native
Yeah.
language comes out, right? Like
Mhm.
it's we learn a new language, but the native language is always pretty strong.
Yeah.
That's why it takes support to really
Yeah, I
make
love
a
how you
change.
frame that as the native language. And then, thinking about as part of the mindful parenting curriculum, like you bring in the brain science about why we don't have access to our prefrontal cortex when we are experiencing a stress response. And then it makes sense. And this is the part that helped me personally unwind from the shame, right? And to notice like this isn't I'm not a broken human being or a bad person. Like I'm having a stress response. And
Mhm.
again, I knew all about the neuroscience behind stress responses, but I hadn't applied it to my own life. And
Mm.
so, that part was super helpful. And it's one of my favorite parts to teach when I'm teaching the mindful parenting curriculum, but also, I teach it in my practice.
Mhm.
I'm sure my clients get very sick of hearing about it because we're always coming back to the brain science. And so that, like when you were talking about that initially, when I was going through the program, I knew that this was a good program and a good fit for me personally um, because it just was based in science.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you gotta address that. Otherwise, it's like ends up being like, well, just respond this way. And then you're like, but I can't because I'm all, reactive. And so we have to deal with our humanity, It's like there's
Yeah.
ways to work with this. Yeah. And it's so essential. I'm so excited. So Darcy, you've taught your first class and I know it went well, but can you tell the listener how it went well?
Yeah, the first class was a really great experience, though. Certainly I experienced what I'm sure a lot of folks experience, which is, nervousness and, a little fear that the technology wasn't going to work and all of these things. But I had such a gracious group of folks participating. And, it was all moms on the first go round. I am excited to do an in-person class. I think that will be a totally new and different experience. But I certainly think uh, there are folks wanting more in my community, so that's exciting.
Yay,
Yeah.
yay. It's so nice to I feel like whenever I share it, I feel like I'm just like sharing these tools that have just, like these are tools that work. Like,
Yeah.
here, take this beautiful thing that these lovely tools that help me so enormously, and may they help you too, like it feels really good to share them all the time.
Yeah.
For me anyway. Yeah.
It does for me as well. And I think, it's been cool because a lot of the folks that took the class, I continue to have communication with. And so, they'll tell me like, "Oh my gosh, that thing that we talked about in mindful parenting," they dubbed it the mindful mama class.
Uh,
I did not dub it that, but they did. And I was like, "You're gonna have to talk to Hunter about that." Um, but yeah, so they'll be like, "Yeah, in mindful mamas, we talked about this and I can't believe it like keeps coming up. And I'm so glad I have this tool with me now." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm so glad you have it too." So it is nice to do the class because you get to have ongoing um, connection with this community. It just like it builds community, and that's another important piece of my life is always being in community.
Yay.
We
Yay.
had my yeah. Go ahead.
And Cooper's 5 now.
Hmm.
You're
Hmm.
past 3.5, the three and a
Yeah.
half crazy. And how's it going? How's it going at home then
It's going
with his?
well. We regularly use win-win problem solving in our house. I've mentioned that in the past, and uh, so Saturday morning we'll roll around and Cooper will say, I'll say, "What does everybody want to do today?" And Cooper's like, "Let's do win-win problem solving." Like it's
Oh my
part of
god.
our family language and culture now, which is really, really exciting and fun. Um, and certainly, like all things, I wax and wane on my mindfulness practice. It's not 100%. It's not perfect. Um, but in my room set up, and I feel like I bring mindfulness more to my life in a holistic way now. Like at the beginning, it was like, oh, I have to go like be on the mat and I have to practice. And I
Mhm.
do that still, but I also like bringing it to all these other areas of my world. So it has really become natural almost.
Mm.
And I think sometimes you get to the point where you're thinking, oh gosh, I'm not even like doing my mindfulness practice anymore. And it's like, oh well, actually, like I think it's become such a innate part of who I am now that I'm always practicing. So that's
Mm.
kind of a cool and important shift.
Well, that's exciting. Well, Darcy, it's been so lovely to talk to you. I've totally enjoyed you being on this journey and watching you do this whole thing and being able it's been an honor to walk with you through this whole journey. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing the story of it here. I think it's so cool, and I hope that, dear listener, you found some pieces in Darcy's story that you can relate with, because I certainly can. I've found pieces that I can relate with enormously, for sure. And Darcy, if we people want to find you in Missoula, around Missoula, Montana, where can they find you?
Okay, well, back to my comment of me being a bit of a like a technology averse. I do have a website. It was really hard to remember the name of my website, but it's Darcey Fairchild, lcsw.com, and it's DARCEY Fairchild,
Yes, yes.
lcsw.com.
Yeah, actually, on the Mindful Mama Mentor site, under the Mindful Parenting link, we're going to have a link to our certified teachers, and you can find Darcy there.
Great.
You're in
Thank
Missoula,
you.
Montana.
Or you can Google me and you'll find me eventually.
Google her. Google her. There you go. You'll find her, and an amazing family therapist, and she can teach your mindful parenting course too.
Thank you, Hunter. It's been
Yay.
fun.
Yay. Thank you so much, Darcey. It has been fun. I love Darcey. She's such a great soul who is walking the talk, man. She's walking the talk. I really love her. So if you are near Missoula, Montana, you should put together your friends and get an in-person mindful parenting course with Darcey. She's an amazing teacher and an amazing peaceful soul. So just to let you know again that the mindful parenting teacher training program is now open. We're opening up our first group. Enrollment is open now. And I only do small groups for this because I teach it personally. I want to have you to have all the personal time you need with it. And it might be right for you if, you believe in peaceful, cooperative parenting, if you're wanting to transform your own patterns so they aren't passed on from generation to generation. If you care deeply about children's mental and emotional health, maybe you've tasted the power of mindfulness and self-compassion, or you really want to master the tools of mindful parenting, or you just want to be a force for good in your local area, right? Like those are some of the things, it might be perfect for you if you're a therapist, a teacher, or social worker, or just simply a parent who is passionate about this work, right? You'll deepen your own understanding, you'll improve your own relationships, and you'll be able to step right into teaching others. Really, really cool. So that's all at mindfulparentingcourse.com/teach. Mindfulparentingcourse.com/teach. When you apply, I'll hop on the phone with you. We'll chat about it. And yeah, I'm so excited to open that up. Thank you for listening here all to the end. And I really appreciate your ears and your connection. I hope this has been helpful. Maybe you could relate to Darcey's story this week, and I cannot wait to be back in your inbox next week. And I'll be here on Friday doing a Friday podcast again. So excited about these. Friday, I'm going to be talking about how busy parents can make time to meditate. So don't miss that short episode. And then I will be back soon. Thank you so much for listening, my friend. Take care. Namaste.
Say definitely do it. It's really helpful. It will change your relationship with your kids for the better. It will help you communicate better. And I'd say communicate better as a person, as a wife, as a spouse. It's been really a positive influence in our lives. So definitely do it.
I'd say definitely do it. It's so worth it. The money really is inconsequential when you get so much benefit from being a better parent to your children and feeling like you're connecting more with them and not feeling like you're yelling all the time or you're like, why isn't things working? I would say definitely do it. It's so worth it. It'll change you.
No matter what age someone's child is, it's a great opportunity for personal growth and it's a great investment in someone's family. I'm very thankful I had this.
You can continue in your old habits that aren't working, or you can learn some new tools and gain some perspective to shift everything in your parenting.
Are you frustrated by parenting? Do you listen to the experts and try all the tips and strategies, but you're just not seeing the results that you want? Or are you lost as to where to start? Does it all seem so overwhelming with too much to learn? Are you yearning for a community of people who get it, who also don't want to threaten and punish to create cooperation? Hi, I'm Hunter Clark-Fields, and if you answered yes to any of these questions, I want you to seriously consider the Mindful Parenting membership. You will be joining hundreds of members who have discovered the path of mindful parenting and now have confidence and clarity in their parenting. This isn't just another parenting class. This is an opportunity to really discover your unique, lasting relationship, not only with your children, but with yourself. It will translate into lasting, connected relationships, not only with your children, but your partner too. Let me change your life. Go to mindfulparentingcourse.com to add your name to the waitlist, so you will be the first to be notified when I open the membership for enrollment. I look forward to seeing you on the inside. mindfulparentingcourse.com.